Welcome back to the Mayhem Performance Podcast. This week, we're talking about time management. And before you turn this off, I promise you probably deal with this too. We just did a survey with all of our MPC clients, and one of the major themes was people lack time in training or feel like they can't prioritize their training. And so what we wanted to do today is kind of break down maybe how you should structure your life to make sure that training can fit into that. And then also how to align your goals, align the time that you have to make sure that you're prioritizing all of the other priorities in your life. So Jake, do you want to kind of kick us off with what you heard from that survey? And then we can kind of dive into maybe some practical application on how to preserve time for training. But also, I think this is the most important thing, preserve time for the other priorities in your life.
Every time, Brandon, you do it. You find a way to do it every time.
Thank you.
Every time before these podcasts, I just got to say this to everybody. Brandon's like, I don't know how to intro this one. And then he comes out with a perfect intro. You didn't even introduce our special guest real quick.
This week, we have Jake Locker on the podcast.
Not very special.
Jake, can you tell us who you are and a little bit about yourself, please? Yeah.
No, I just want a word count on how many times we say the word time. Next 35 minutes.
Oh man, it's going to be a lot.
Yeah.
We'll try to avoid it. Jake, why are you here today?
You called me and asked me, can you come talk about time and priorities?
Yeah.
You said I was qualified to talk about it. So I'm not sure I'm qualified. I actually love this topic, so I'm quite excited.
No, I actually do. I know you do. And you and I have talked about it, and we'll dive into that a little bit more. But yeah, to piggyback off Brandon, over the last, I don't know, decade, maybe, I've done market research at several different avenues, whether it's in an affiliate, actually a couple different affiliates, and then remote coaching, the old remote coaching business that I had. And then we've done it twice with Mayhem Performance Coaching. I've actually used the same survey almost every time. I've made some tweaks to the questions, like real subtle, but it's really simple. It's usually just asking people what their biggest challenges are, what their biggest fears and frustrations are. And across all, I've done the survey, I think a total of 7 or 8 times. No matter what population I'm surveying, the number one frustration, challenge, problem, however you want to say it, that everyone comes back with is a lack of time. And so, Brandon and I were talking, well, hey, what do we want to cover in the podcast? And, I think one of the ways that we see this podcast is how do we problem solve for people, right? Like, in competitive CrossFit. And so if the number one issue is a lack of time, how do we address that problem to begin with? I think the problem with the problem of a lack of time is that it's actually the problem is not a lack of time. The problem is actually something else. I don't know if you guys want to dig into that a little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, I think that usually it's an alignment of goals and making sure that they are, I always use this term, protect what's precious. And what I mean by that is simply, you have to prioritize your priorities. Like for me, now I'm in a stage of life where family, my relationship with Jesus Christ come first. And so those are number 1, 2 priorities. Number 1 would be Jesus Christ, family. And then everything else is layered on top of that, right? It's like, okay, what else are things that are going to allow me to enrich those priorities? And training can be one of those things for me. I use training to enrich, to make sure that I'm clear-headed, thoughtful. I can play with my kids. I have energy. And so that's the way that I look at training. Now, for the CrossFitter, it's going to be a little bit different, right? They have maybe a priority to make the CrossFit Games or to qualify for a quarterfinal. And so their priorities shift a little bit, but you still need to be rooted in what are the things that are most important to me? And then how does every other thing that I do in the day enrich those most important priorities for me? And the other thing, I think you have to have this context around training that it's not, I have to do this. It's, I get to do this, right? And if you can just change that mindset, it makes it much easier to not feel like you're always crunched for time because you're excited about what you're doing.
Yeah, I think it's James Clear, the guy who wrote Atomic Habits, had good, he's got a lot of good one-liners, but one of them was, it was really simple, is we make time for what we want to prioritize.
Yes.
And I used to think too, I was thinking a lot about time, with this always being the number one problem, right? So you're trying to create marketing tools and trying to help people with it. I've thought a lot about it. I think at one point I was like, man, it's so cliche to be like, it almost sounds like a David Goggins approach. Like, you don't lack time, you lack prioritization. It's like, but you can't get away from it. It's just true, right? Everyone's busy. I think that's the first thing. Like, we all lack time, right? Like, we all have a million things going on. That's not new. It's probably never going to change. This is America, baby. Like, we're ready to go 100 miles an hour. It really does then. What else is it other than to talk about what you want to prioritize? And then, like you said, okay, you got a list of priorities in life. And then are you making sure that your goal or particular goals are aligned with those priorities?
I think you can even back it up even a little more. Totally right. You got to work backwards from goals, prioritize based on that. But what is your purpose ultimately in life? Like we have a Christian worldview, so that'll be our ultimate purpose. So if you're Christian, we absolutely can help you with that. If you're not, you've got to say, what is my purpose in life? Back it out from there. What is my ultimate goal? A good framework mindset. Multiple books do it. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Stephen Covey starts at like, go to your funeral. Think about what you want people to say at your funeral. Watch the videos of people like 80, 90 years old, looking back, what's your regrets in life? Yeah. All of them, if you're a parent, are basically like not spending more time with your kids. So instant dad guilt, or not spending more time with your family, or making things. No one said, I wish I worked more or worked out more. So
it's a living life backwards. You know, I think
you got to do that Gibson essentially.
Book. Yeah.
That is a book.
Jake, how would you define, if we talk a little bit more about alignment? So yeah, your priorities are born from your purpose, right? Would be the way of saying it. And if you're a believer like we are, we know that it has to be faith, number one. And then we're all married men. So it's our spouse, right? And then our kids and so on and so forth. How would you then define goals versus priorities? How would you differentiate between those two?
That's actually a great question. Yes, we would be faith, family, fitness, service, like organizationally, and somewhat in life, like faith, family, or maybe 1 and 2, then work, really probably 3 for most of us here. Fitness would be 4 or 5 on the list. You said, so yeah, purpose would be, what is my ultimate aim in life? Glorify God, enjoy Him forever, and then serve people around me or the lost, reach them, and then our body, the church. That would be like ultimate purpose, priority from that. Like, that's a great question. I should probably have thought through that more. Like goal would probably then be, how do I establish that this year? This is the thing I'm going to do this year. I'm going to serve my family well this year. I'm going to serve them better, but I'm going to get specific about that. And maybe it's going to be when I'm going to get home at 6 o'clock right now. I get home every day at 6 o'clock. I get 1 night a week. I can be out later. But other than that, week nights, that's something we made a priority because my goal is to spend more time with my family. It's making it specific day-to-day of priorities. And I'm going to be home every day at 6 o'clock within that. Mm-hmm. Like we're big runners now. If you train a lot, that's a goal in your life to run a certain time in a marathon. Foster's running this Sunday. So a priority right now is his running every day, which then he's hired a coach. He follows the exact program, blocks out time, works backwards from there. His goal is to run that thing, short-term goal, priority daily fits within that. I've thought a ton about time. Actually this year, the best nonfiction book all time, in my opinion, besides the Bible, is Atomic Habits by James Clear, because there's so many things in that. He's actually kind of anti-goal in a way, because you don't rise to like your goals, you fall to your systems is essentially what he says. And so goals are great, but like everyone sits in your goal. Yep. We know they fail. You fall back with your system every day, which is really blocking your time. In essence, what's the system you use to block your time within that to accomplish the thing you set out to? I use Google Calendar every day. I'm very imperfect in like how I execute this. So I fail probably more than even you guys, I would say, not even being humble. I like legit probably do. I'm disciplined, but like you guys are probably even more disciplined than me. We all have 168 hours in a week. It's a good way to think about it. Every day, if you want to function well, most of us, probably like 98% plus, need to sleep 8 hours. Otherwise, you're just going to train more poorly. You're going to work less efficiently. You're going to be in a worse mood. So there's 8 hours gone every day. Probably got to work 8 hours every day. And then between commuting, self-care, all that type of stuff, you probably have 6 to 7 hours. So how are you going to block those 6 to 7 hours every day to fill in your priorities set from your goals that are then established because of your purpose in
life?
Baby. 6 hours of training, you can win the CrossFit Games.
You guys are running like 6 hours, so I guess it makes sense. Crap. 50 miles a week or more. Yeah, I love that kind of systems process. And I think that there are some people that just don't like having systems because they feel like it actually crunches their time. But I think most people would be shocked that when you set up a system for even a couple of weeks, it becomes a habit. And when you start having those habits, it becomes this really nice routine that then you can lean on, that again enriches all the things that you want to do. And to kind of go back to that concept, I want to make sure my athletes, even if they're training for the CrossFit Games, that they're at their best self in everything else that matters in life. So if they're going into a training session and they pour it all out there, but then they're still frustrated because of time, and they come home and then they're, rude to their spouse, or they can't get other work done, or any other priorities they're failing at because of the training, then training's actually going to end up being much worse than it otherwise would be. When you align everything and you have a healthy home life, you have a healthy work life, then training becomes much more robust, and you can actually see a lot of progress because you feel good about going into that training session. And that's what I meant by saying I don't have to do this. I get to do this training session. You get excited about it because everything else is aligned. We see so many athletes. I'm sure those that are listening to this can feel this. When everything else is out of order, then even if training is going well, it kind of starts to get out of order, right? Because you're thinking in the back of your head all these other things that you got to do that day, or you just had an argument with your spouse, or maybe work's not going well, and so then it impacts your training. But when you have those systems, those underlying systems that are built in, you create these routines, these habits, it allows you to really be able to dive into your training and improve that, but also it keeps everything else in line.
You really want to put, like you're saying, everything else on autopilot.
Yes.
So when you're doing the thing you're doing, that's the only thing you're doing. This is something I've really tried to improve this year and need to get better at. If you have all these clutter in your mind that's constantly there, things you need to be doing, you feel guilty not spending time with your family, you're lacking sleep, all this, and it's going to eke into your training to where you get less quality of that training. And then even if you spend more quantity, quote unquote, time in that training, you're probably going to get less out of it. So you have to establish these things. Otherwise, they're going to bleed over constantly from training to any freaking work to family time later, whatever it is. And like your life shouldn't all be completely segmented in some sense, but in another sense, it should be, I'm where my feet are right now. And you can only do that if you're set up for success in a way where you know what your days look like. And you're not thinking when you're brushing your teeth, you just know you wake up and brush your teeth. So from there, these things are set, so you don't have to think about them.
You brush your teeth in the morning?
I do a majority of the intro calls for Mayhem Performance. So I get to talk to people about this all the time, right? Because I ask them, hey, where are you now and where do you want to go? And what are the biggest obstacles that stand in your way? And most of the people we talk to, I drive this home, I think even more so all the time, because I keep hearing it. Like, it's crazy to me. I still hear on some of these intro calls, like, I thought you guys were only like coaching games athletes. And I just want to start crying. It'd be like, we're for you. We're for you. Like, we coach you. But I think most people listening to this would be like, yeah. Okay. I get it. Like, I think about the guy that I talked to yesterday, I won't mention his name, but father, I think he had 4 kids, 28 years old, in the military, full-time job in the military. And he had a really good perspective on this where he like, we were having a conversation about it. He's like, yeah, look, like, I don't want this to overtake my life. I want to be a weekend warrior. Like, I want to throw down some local competitions. I want to train 5 days a week, 90 minutes, so on and so forth. I think most people are like him. Again, they listen to their goals and priorities, check. They don't take it the next step and actually maybe quite literally list it out and go, here are my priorities in life. Here's how much time I want to allot to those. Here's my fitness or competitive CrossFit goal specifically. And then actually like sit there and look at the two and see if they actually balance each other out. Like, they don't take it that extra step, right? Because it's one thing to be like, because you'll hear this a lot. That guy, I've heard, 10 others like him then go, hey, I want to go qualify for Wodapalooza RX. It's not just throw down local competitions. I want to win all the local competitions. I want to go to Wodapalooza RX. It's like, do you realize how much time those guys are spending training, even at Wodapalooza RX, which is CrossFit Games athletes now? Or you say you want to win local competitions. You're 28 with 4 kids and a full-time job, and you want to beat the 22-year-old in every local comp. Do you realize what that 22-year-old is doing and how much time he's spending on this? Like, I don't know if that's been your experience.
You don't want to win RX.
Yeah. But I think the nice thing about it is people would be surprised how little time they can actually train and get better.
Yeah.
Right. I think there's this misconception in the CrossFit space, especially because you see Instagram and you see the games athlete that's doing 2 or 3 sessions a day and assume that that's what it takes. But I have a lot of athletes that have made the games doing 1 session per day up until maybe their games prep. Right. And that's just
you're referring to age group.
Even regular games athletes, maybe over the summer, they start adding in that second session. So there are a lot of ways to skin the cat when it comes to CrossFit, and, volume is not everything. And I think that people assume that it is, but either way, whether you're doing 4 hours of training a day, 8 hours of training a day, or 1 hour training a day, the way to get the most out of it is to make sure that everything else is aligned. So you're not bringing all of these bad things into your training time. And then the same thing's true, that your training isn't dictating how you act outside of training, right? With, again, your spouse, your loved ones, your work-life balance, whatever it may be. And so I think that, again, it goes back to how are you aligning each day to make sure that you're getting the most out of where your feet are, back to Jake, your point earlier. And I think that is where people need to sit down, and Foster, you just mentioned this, actually write down your goals. What do I want what does my perfect day look like? What does my perfect week look like? What is my purpose and what are my priorities? And then start building those systems that underlie all of that, and then practice it, right? Because it's just like training. You know, our marriages are kind of like training in that we're always learning, we're always growing, and we should always pursue excellence in that. And we fail constantly. You're talking about making, like, I have a full schedule kind of like you, Jake, and every day it gets off. But I'm getting better and better and better. And by having that system in place, it allows me to be able to prioritize where my feet are at that moment.
Yeah, to really nerd out, I'll go a little bit nerdy stuff, then back to fitness. If you can just have one document, that's what I've done this year, and lay out everything on it from like your work life standpoint, like, and it can link to all your email or project like docs, just have one page for that. And then one page of your personal stuff. Maybe it's like where you work on your marriage or like a vacation coming up or stuff you got to do around the house. One page your whole life can fit on. You can do that. It'll drastically improve like the clutter in your mind.
What do you mean by that? Like it's almost like a mission statement for yourself?
No.
Like,
I'm saying that's good too. But I'm saying literally like I have Mayhem and it lists all my projects right there. And it's just like links like program compete or, you know, I mean, not that, but this comp we're talking to, this, like all this podcast I got to do tomorrow, links that doc. And so have it all right there and have a different way of organizing it based on priority, but it lists all. And it's just like a few words for each thing. So everything work related is right there. And then like Notion does the same thing. So just to do as others, mine's just a blank Google Doc, and then below a personal, and it lists everything like financial stuff, some family stuff, and whatever's coming up this year. And it's all right there. So I know in my entire life, I can look to that document and it kind of declutters things for me because I can keep referencing it, take things off as they get done, update it, and try to look at it every single day. If you look at that thing every single day, it'll like get things off your mind on a page rather than like email's a terrible way to do this. So you clear the email, go to there. Then back to your point on like, I get it. I had the CrossFit bug big time, trained more than I needed to, but I freaking love training, want to be as fit as I could. God did not make me make the CrossFit games. I had it on my bucket list 15 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever, maybe. And when I'm 55, I will, but like, I'm just not genetically made to. And I train 3-4 hours a day, which probably at that limit is the most you're gonna get out of training. We generally agree, I think, if you're training 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours afternoon, all year, like, I don't think you're getting any more out of training than that. So 4 hours a day. So you just got to make sure your purpose is aligned with that goal to make the CrossFit Games. Is it realistic? And then looking back from the end, the beginning, are you going to willing to sacrifice these things to make the games? And are you sure you can do it? And we at Mayhem will be more honest than most people. Like, hey, make sure this is what you really, really want. Because then people often win the games or make the games and like, was it as great as I thought it'd be? Some people absolutely. And some people was like, actually wasn't all as cracked up to be because it just built up so much in my mind. So that's kind of my thoughts on how much you actually can train, how much you can get better. And then that is why we have one-on-one performance coaching. So people build a relationship, make sure you keep those things aligned. And then truly like JD East, I couldn't believe he was training as much as he was with 4 kids. Like he said, I think he said 5 hours a day. I was like, what? How are you even doing that? Even if you're following Mayhem Masters, it's not that many hours.
Gunkler, was it 6? I think he said, or something.
He must've been stacking programs or something.
I thought you did that interview. Okay. Oh no, initially.
Before he started.
Yeah. For sure.
Oh, okay.
An outlet. Yeah.
So if you're coming to this Mayhem, you want to coach, or you followed a program before, like in general, people that follow Mayhem Compete are going to train in general, like 90 minutes or so, maybe 2 hours. Like they're going to train more than a normal person, a little over an hour. If you're semifinals games, yes, you're training more. But in general, most people coming in are training 1 to 2 hours. And then if you're looking for a coach, like they want to maximize those 1 to 2 hours, which you guys and our coaching team really does awesome at that, because they're going to dial in the weaknesses, build backwards from there when they need to dial in from that standpoint. So most people at Mayhem, most Mayhem athletes are truly the people that just want to train an hour to maybe 2 hours a day, throw down, do the best they can at the local comp, or qualify for like Fitz the Coast, Wadapalooza, whatever that thing is.
How do you guys determine, like, Jake, if somebody came to you, or Brandon, one of your athletes, side note, Jake still coaches, low key, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely low key. Nobody realizes you've programmed for an individual athlete.
Trust is fresh. I gotta stay in the system.
Yeah, different people. And you know, that you get even more practical. Okay, how do I know, Brandon, I'm coming to you. How do I know if whether I should do 60, 90, or 2 hours? So I've got my priorities. Go ahead.
So jump in. To give an example right now, so me and Jack Roseman are super tight. He made the games for the second time this year. I program him individually. Jack's like the easiest guy to coach ever, like for real, because he's has all his priorities aligned. He knows who he is as a man. He loves Jesus, his family, developing his career. He's also in the military. He's a lawyer there. It's like he's a freaking stud. Or wrestled at Ohio State. But he's still figuring out. And like, I kind of wish he trained a couple hours a day right now, 2.5. Most days it's probably like an hour and a half, because of all those other priorities are so aligned with his goals. And he's like, hey, I'm willing to take the risk. Like this year, he only trained 90 minutes to maybe 2 hours most days of the year because of all those other things that were stacked up. And now he's about to have his third kid. And so we went into semifinals being like, you probably have a 50-50 shot to make it individually. And so he was willing to take the risk to not be able to make it because of his priorities were aligned and the things he knew he needed to do to be successful in life. And he really wanted to make the games, but he was like, I'm not going to throw away all this other stuff. So, and he barely snuck in. He got second at Syndicate, like beat Luke Parker by like a point or two. And that was just, he was okay with that. Thankfully he made it. But like this next year, I don't know what he's going to do exactly, but he's probably going to make that same risk.
Yeah. I mean, I think to take it a step further, the conversations I'm having are trying to figure out what the other priorities are first. Okay. So, let's dial in everything else that matters, and then we'll figure out where training fits in that. And so if someone only has 60 minutes, I have a lot of athletes that are like that, then we're going to build a 60-minute program. If they have more time in the day, you find, especially with masters athletes, actually, once they're established in their career, maybe their kids are out of the house, they actually have more time. So then we can get in 90 minutes or 2 hours. It's kind of those that are in the middle of their career, maybe our age, that like we're still trying to, really grind at work. We have young families, so we want to be there for our younger kids and our spouse that maybe have a little bit less time. I think a lot of people can empathize with that. But all that said, I think if we talk about programming, this is where there's a huge benefit to having a coach, because we can still fit in all of the priorities in a 60-minute session 4 to 5 times a week and get you better. Would it be better to do 90 minutes or 2 hours for someone that's trying to make the games? Sure. But I've gotten a lot of people better by doing an assessment, identifying their limitations, and then having training blocks that are just focused on specific limitations, like keeping it very, very simple and know, hey, we got to work on your ring muscle ups and your handstand walking. Okay, the next block, we got to work on your snatch and your back squat. And the next block, we're going to do endurance training to prep for the open. That's a very easy way for the coach to have to worry about that, and the athlete doesn't have to.
Yeah, shameless pitch here is that I tell people on intro calls all the time, the busier you are, the more valuable having a coach becomes. Yeah. Right? Because then it becomes a prioritization game, right? Like how do we prioritize what you really need in the time that you have? And then most people cannot do that effectively on their own. I can't do it. That's why I still have a coach, right? Who programs for me. Yeah. Or Lockhart, at least we try to write our training together. We have a skeleton and then we argue back and forth.
Well, I think one of the tendencies is people that have more time, they end up doing too much.
Yeah.
And then they're overtrained, they get beat up. And we just did a podcast on pain and injury with Ben Moore. And that's that athlete. That's, they really could get all they need out of training in 60 to 90 minutes, but they're doing that second session. They're overdoing it. They're snatching 6 times a week. They get shoulder pain, and then they're hurt for 4 or 5 weeks where they can't snatch. So they're not getting any better. They would be better off having a coach that can prioritize those limitations, make sure they're getting better at those specific things. And a coach also is looking at like kind of the overarching picture of the year. Okay, their goal is to make a quarterfinal. What do I need to get them better at in that quarterfinal so that they can actually qualify? Or what do they need to get better at in the open? And then the coach worries about all the logistics, and then the athlete can come in and just have fun with their training and continue to pursue excellence in CrossFit.
Another thing too, to back up a little bit too, is going back to how do I know whether that for me is 60 minutes or 90 minutes or 2 hours. I think about David Mathis, who we had on. Did you jump in on that one, Jake? Yeah.
He was awesome.
Yeah, it was amazing. I highly recommend this book. A very short read. It's called A Little Theology of Fitness. It was written by David Mathis. He's a pastor. He works with Desiring God Ministries, John Piper's ministry. We had him come talk to our coaches. And I don't know if I asked him or Dom did. One of us asked him, like, what is the litmus test to know if I am if my fitness is kind of not overtaking my faith or becoming a bigger priority than it needs to be in my life. And man, he had such a simple response. He just said, is it inconveniencing your family regularly? For example, like, is your fitness regularly becoming an inconvenience to your wife, for example? And oh man, I've been thinking about that one a lot. I'm like, because of running, like you said, Brandon. I mean, I've coaching for so long and having this goals and priorities conversation. When I decided, hey, I want to go marathon train, I sat with Madeline. We sat in front of my whiteboard in the office, and I was like, hey, look, I am not going to set this goal and say, I want to run a sub 3 hour marathon until you and I sit down and we literally look at the calendar together. So we wrote out the whole week, and I was like, hey, here's what I'm willing to commit to training. And we just went back and forth. It was like a half-hour conversation. When would I run? When am I going to do my long run? I knew that was a thing, right? When am I going to do that? How do I do that strategically throughout the week and not take away time from family? Okay, it's got to be super early in the morning. It's going to be Sunday morning before church and all these sorts of things. And I thought, cool, I'm good to go, green light. And you start moving into it. And then you think about all the times where it is like, okay, well, like you said, I don't always follow that routine that I set out with Madeline. And how often in the last 2 years have I inconvenienced my wife or took time away from my kids? Not just time in general, because that's too vague, right? But it's like time I should have been spending with my boys. Or better yet, not just time I should be spending with my boys. Maybe I'm spending time with them, but daddy just ran 20 miles, so his legs hurt so bad. I don't want to throw the football with you, Brett. And now it's like, anyway, yeah. I'm ranting off on myself, but that's the David Mathis response right there. That's the inconvenience of my family.
Yeah. I think that comes down to what's your purpose. And Jake, I speak for all of us. I think our purpose is our faith and our family. And so the way that we think about training is and should be different than maybe the younger athlete that doesn't have a family, maybe doesn't even have a full-time job, and their whole goal is CrossFit. So I want to just quickly shift gears. I'd love to hear you guys, your thoughts on this. What about the athlete that maybe comes to us? We have some that are on site, the 20 to 24-year-old, that their whole focus is making the CrossFit Games. What's the conversation with that athlete? Because maybe they don't need to worry about family. They don't need to worry about a job. Their whole priority or what they identify as their number one goal is CrossFit.
Yeah, so probably had this conversation a number of times. Seth Stovall being one. So Stovall walked in the gym. He drove from California. We told the story in his van. Showed up and he was like, "I'll make the CrossFit Games." I was like, "Well, you're in the right spot." And I was just kind of went through the thing I go through. I thought about making a video. It was like, one, you didn't get to choose your parents, so you have a genetic ceiling that we're going to find out, I guess. And you can't control that. You might be able to, but most people, obviously, 0.01% can only make the CrossFit Games. Just like only so many people can make the NBA, NFL, whatever it is. So that genetic ceiling, we'll find out how close we can get to the top of it. Outside of that, like we need to have your training in line, obviously, based on where you're going to try to get to this year, all the things you talk about with now we get them a coach versus sometimes they still follow compete, whatever it is. And so they're back in that training, then they're going to just prioritize and maximize everything from training, sleep, nutrition. So everything revolves around getting as fit as possible from all the things we talked about here on the podcast, so that's the number one priority. Everything's back into there. And like, you're not staying up till 11 o'clock. You're going to bed 9 to 10 every single night. Your routines be the exact same every day. Your meals are going to look the exact same to get all the macros and macronutrients you need in. And then training is going to look like that every single day to get the most intensity and work on what you need to work on.
And then I think too, to add to that, and which I know, Jake, you do a good job with these athletes too, and then finishing with, now you could do all that and you might.
Absolutely.
Odds are you're probably never going to make it.
That's why I say, I'm like, hey, like you can do all, the odds are not stacked in your favor. Like that's why the parent conversation, their genetic potential, like you may do everything absolutely the best you can. And like, you just don't got it.
You just got to love the game.
You got to be okay with like that answer too, going after it as hard as you're going after it. Cause I mean, we kind of did in a sense for like 4 or 5 years, maybe a little bit less. Like we went for it as hard as we could. And like, we weren't even that close.
Yeah. We weren't Brandon. Yeah.
No. Brandon could go for it.
Genetic potential.
He didn't even want to go for it.
I know. But we didn't have those genes.
Y'all can layer on top of that. We all tell.
We still have to put product in our hair to get it to look a certain way. Brandon doesn't.
Just wakes up like that.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
I like making them feel uncomfortable in the middle of this conversation.
This may be going on a little bit of a tangent, but one of the things I like to do still with those younger athletes, and hopefully I'm speaking to someone, is as a coach, I still want to speak into their life to make sure that even if CrossFit is the number one priority, that they're learning things from the grind of CrossFit, the 4 or 5 years they put into it, that will allow them to be a better man or woman when they're done with it, because there is an end point. And that doesn't mean like, you guys are running right now, but you still do CrossFit stuff. So you're still having fun with it, but you're not pursuing the goal anymore. And I think the hardest part for high level athletes, you see this in the NFL, the NBA, they retire and it's like, well, what is my purpose? So I would highly encourage even those that they really believe that their purpose is CrossFit to start rooting yourself in something bigger than that. Because those that really do that usually have better success and they're healthier mentally, physically, emotionally after they retire from the sport of CrossFit.
Or even during it, sometimes they're better, right? Because like go back to Jake Nomchev, like why does the Christian athlete get to be one of the best athletes in the world? Because they compete with freedom, right? When your whole identity isn't wrapped in the sport or all of your time and prioritization, and you have other hobbies or things that, compete with that time, it kind of frees you up a little bit. I think it's to be determined, but Seth has had a significant shift in the last few months. He just got married, right? And now, he's got another priority. He has his wife he has to spend time with. And I've already seen a significant shift in his whole mentality around training. He's like looser. He's just looser. And I think that can make Seth dangerous. Again, yet to be seen this year. We'll see. But even at the very least, like he's just approaching training in a different way this year.
I think the other big thing with young athletes too, to Seth's credit, he's doing that more now. Like you can still train 4 hours a day, but there's a lot of hours in the day. Like set yourself up for success practically in life so that you're not just going to veg out at home in between training sessions. Like find somewhere you're working, find someone to mentor you, work under. It's probably CrossFit's.
Educate yourself, get a trade.
Do something so that in 4 or 5 years when like this timeline's done, like you have something to somewhat step into versus nothing at all. There's exceptions, sure, like Austin Hatfield, Roman Krennikov, like these dudes should be going all in. That's their only focus because they can win the CrossFit Games. Some other people on site for sure as well. Like I get that. But if you're not that top tier, you've already made the games, you're right there on the cusp of the podium and winning it, then like you need to be setting yourself up for success in life on top of just trying to make the games individually or as on a team or whatever.
Let me flip to the other side. Maybe we can finish with this. It's like on the other extreme. So you've got your, solely going for it. And then we're talking about like living with this balance and alignment. I think on the other end is where I fell into trap, maybe too strong of a word, because I don't think it's all that bad. But, before Mayhem, I started a business, Comeback Athlete. And it was like, how do, former high school collegiate athletes who leave the sport. This is us, right? All three of us sitting right here. And then you feel like, you lose your identity. When football was done, and then CrossFit was kind of what replaced it really quickly, but pretend you didn't have CrossFit and you're just training aimlessly. And that's when guys get out of shape and you're just like, and then you always have that itch that never gets scratched. So then you start doing fantasy football and, but it never really truly like
now DraftKings.
Yeah. What do you train for? Like it actually went back to what Rich always says. Like it was all of Comeback Athlete was built on this idea of like, go train with purpose. Go compete. And for a long time, it was because I had let go of competition altogether. Once competitive CrossFit was done, I was so burned out because I was doing way too much that I was like, I gotta let go of competition. I gotta let go altogether. I can't compete anymore. My priorities are out of whack and my goals are out of alignment. Like I just need to be a great dad. I need to be a great husband. I just completely shoved it all to the side. And I was even more unhappy. Right. I think I've come back to this middle ground of like, I don't have to give up on competition. It can still be a hobby. I don't know how often you've seen that with some people. I don't think that that's a common problem, but it was something that I fell into, which is like, I got to get rid of all of it. And then I no longer just pursue competition, which is what I'm passionate about. You can still do it.
Yeah. I mean, Rich says this all the time, to have something to train for.
Yeah.
That's kind of where he's at in life. Like he's not competing in the CrossFit Games, but he's still like, he's prepping for this 24-hour row. I think they're doing, when is it, next week or something like that? But I've seen him rowing multiple times. And so he's still giving himself some purpose by doing that. And obviously his main purpose is with his faith and his family. And so that's his priority. But I think for an athlete that still loves fitness, like build in some, something to train for. So have some specific goals that, one of the things I like to do, and I don't have one right now, which is actually, I kind of feel the same way of like, man, I need to have something.
I can coach you.
I don't want all the CrossFit work. But I did this for years where I wasn't preparing for a CrossFit competition, but I would still say like, hey, I want to PR 2K row, right? I want to PR my back squat. I would just pick one or two things and I would write a training cycle for myself or ask a coach to write it for me because that gave me some purpose when I was in the gym. But more than all of that, and again, this goes back to when you're rooted in a different purpose. When I go out to my garage or I train at Mayhem, the way that I'm thinking about that is, one, I want to make sure that I have fun, right? Like I like to do stuff with other people, like training this weekend with all the affiliate owners that were in it was a blast, right? I got to do a workout with you, Jake. But I want to make sure that my training is leading to me being a better husband, father, worker, all of those things. So it's like, how do I set myself up in my training sessions to make sure that I feel good when I leave, I'm thinking more clearly, I have more energy. And obviously that's not most CrossFitters, right? They're thinking about it differently, but that's a really good way as you start to kind of like maybe leave the sport where you still want touches on it. I still do hard CrossFit workouts, but I do it strategically to make sure that it's enriching. I use that word again, all of the other areas of my life.
Is the David Matt fit for what?
Yeah.
Right. Like how is fitness? Is it a tool? What he would say is biblically, it's pretty clear. It's fit so that you could be ready to do every good work.
Yes.
Right. Exactly. So in other words, fit to serve others. Yeah. And how often are CrossFitters training for fitness in a way that actually quite literally robs us of being able to do service for others, not just because of time, but fatigue.
Yeah.
Right. Like go back.
We've all felt that too.
Yeah. I'm not getting off the couch. I'm not going to go do that. Like I got to sit in my Normatec boots for an hour,
I think to your point, It's all super specific to the individual, because I think a lot of guys like us, once they move out of the CrossFit phase, or college football for sure, college sports, high school, the competitive phase either gets in unhealthy outlets, or maybe it is a healthy outlet. A lot of guys are just business. They just go super hard there, which is a good thing. Career, that's good too. Hopefully this not become like an idol, but that's where a lot of people go. I think it can be a good balance as well. You can still go hard, make that part of your competitive nature. And then what's naturally fun to you in training now? Like if you were a CrossFit a long time like we were now, I don't know why, but running's fun. I don't know. It just is.
It's weird.
It's weird. Yeah. It's freaking weird. But we still have CrossFit as a part of that. A lot of lifting still. So then that's what we do. And we build a training plan around that. We had a guy actually email in, connecting with you. We coach competitive CrossFitters is the aim, but there is a handful every now and then. Like he wants to run an ultra marathon. He still trains CrossFit. He wants like a way to go about doing that. And Foster's like, the screen's personalization kicking to me. So I was like, yeah, you're right. So I gave him some general recommendations on what he could do following Mayhem Athlete. But I was like, you don't just do all these things. You want more, than you do need a coach. So having that, whatever it is, like an ultra marathon is kind of extreme. Maybe it is run half marathon this year while you're still doing class 3 times a week and don't want to lose all your strength, which you're going to have to keep lifting, spoiler alert. And you can keep most of your strength. It's just, you're going to sacrifice some of the CrossFit fitness to do the other specific goal, whether it's run a race, do a high rocks, or some type of endurance event often is popular because of just that difference in like, you just long, slow grind. So, 3 books, if you want to read on kind of the Bible, number 1, defining your purpose, priority, fitness, or goals and priorities. But outside of that, 3 nonfiction, non-Christian books, maybe the top 3 is 1, Atomic Habits, 2, Time Management for Mere Mortals, Oliver Berkman. It's kind of a sleeper. It was really, really good. And then Jocko, if you just listen to a couple podcasts, Discipline Equals Freedom is what we keep going back to. He's the one of the David Goggins, wakes up at 4:30 every day and makes his day set so he can have the freedom to do what he needs to do.
5 days a week, 60 minutes, as hard as you can, with a coach, with direction, with clarity, with purpose, and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah. I'll wrap it up with this, because we've been talking a lot about like, identifying your purpose, and, maybe you don't need to train as much. We are all extremely passionate about getting people better at CrossFit. Mm-hmm. We still want champions, and I aim for that with every single one of my athletes. So it's not that you can't pursue those things. We want you to pursue it with as much fervor as possible, but we want you to be able to do it in a healthy way so that you can get the best out of it. And that means aligning your goals.
It's good to bring it back. We want to build freaking champions. Yeah. We just want to make sure they should be freaking champions. And once that is true, we're all in with you.
Yep, exactly.
Cool.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.